The black box was recovered cold, cracked, and silent. 6 hours later, inside a locked evidence drawer, it began transmitting again. This is an original fictional case file from the Bureau of Lost Signals, reconstructed from archive notes, corrupted recordings, and evidence photographs that do not agree with each other. A recorder, built to preserve the past, starts describing a future room. The file does not begin with a monster. It begins with a cracked black box recorder sealed in a drawer, ordinary enough to be ignored until the timestamps start contradicting the room. The evidence technician reports the drawer was warm before the sound began, like the recorder had been waiting for permission. The first impossible detail is power. The battery bay is empty, but the carrier stays perfectly stable. The proof object is a cracked cockpit recorder sealed in a tamper bag with a custody tag no one remembers signing. The waveform carries a low underwater siren tone beneath the cockpit audio. The evidence room has no window, no antenna, and no route for the signal except through the recorder itself. A pre-existing archive folder already contains a partial transcript of the transmission. By the second review pass, the Bureau had 3 copies of the same event. One came from the live recorder. One came from a sealed cabinet. One came from a source that should not have been able to transmit anything at all. The cockpit audio is not from the wreck. It is describing the Bureau room in real time. The case rule is simple. The recorder only speaks after someone writes down what it should not know. The visual evidence looks boring until it does not. Dust on a table, a light in a window, a needle moving without a hand near it. That restraint is why the case stayed open. Nothing performs for the camera. The room simply changes its mind. The final packet points to a room number that is not on the Bureau floor plan. That is where the evidence room stops being a location and becomes a test. Every instrument points somewhere plausible. Every human statement points somewhere else. The evidence board splits into 3 columns. The first column is mechanical. Serial numbers, room temperature, timestamps, custody marks. The second column is human. What the night staff heard, what they refused to write down, and which light stayed on after the recorder stopped. The third column is the one the Bureau never shows publicly because it tracks what changed after each replay. On the first replay, a cracked black box recorder sealed in a drawer behaves like damaged equipment. On the second, it behaves like a transmitter. On the third, it behaves like a witness correcting the official record. That progression matters because it turns a strange object into a chain of custody problem. The Bureau isolates the file in a clean room. No network, no wireless card, no external speaker, and a fresh recorder with a blank index. The sound still arrives with the same low pressure under it, but the silence around the sound is different, as if the new room has been added to the recording. One analyst marks the moment the case stops being passive evidence. It is not the loudest moment. It is not the most frightening moment. It is a tiny delay before the next tone. A pause just long enough to feel like the file is waiting for the Bureau to catch up. The physical scene around the evidence room never becomes spectacular. That is what makes it worse. No door slams. No impossible figure crosses the frame. The proof is smaller. A shadow that should belong to equipment that is not there. A meter needle settling before power returns. A tag number printed 1 line too early. The public reconstruction uses only the safest fragments, but even those fragments create a pattern. Every time the Bureau removes context to make the case easier to explain, the remaining evidence becomes more direct. The file seems to punish simplification. By mid-afternoon, the archive team tests a control phrase. They write down a sentence that is never spoken aloud. The next recording does not repeat the sentence. It does something worse. It leaves a gap exactly where the sentence would fit. That gap becomes the case's fingerprint. Not a voice, not a symbol, not a threat. An absence with consistent timing, carried from device to device as if the missing part is the message. The black box is not replaying the wreck. It is broadcasting the Bureau's next inspection. The Bureau tried to reduce the file to equipment failure, but each clean room replay carried one extra detail from the room that had just played it. The public copy removes the worst part. The private copy keeps it. The event behaves less like a transmission and more like a memory, deciding which machine should hold it next. The last sound is a chair scraping in a room that has not been opened. The file is sealed as a black box transmission with the underwater tone flagged for continuity. If the recorder is still transmitting, the Bureau may already be inside its next recording. The next file begins with a room number printed where a wall should be.